Student of the Game is brought to you by Noll Team Real Estate. Our mission is to eradicate mediocre real estate transactions. On your largest financial purchase, you shouldn't have to deal with average. We do this by helping you save time, reduce your stress, and helping you keep as much money in your pocket as we can. You can help us out by introducing us to your friends or family who want to make confident real estate decisions, whether buying, selling, building, or investing. At Noll Team Real Estate, we are connected to a group of realtors who sell 1 in every 8 homes in North America. If you know someone moving out of your area, there's a great chance we can connect them to somebody we know, like, and trust. Remember, relationships win. Welcome back to another episode of Student of the Game. I'm with my new friend, Erica Hyatt. How are you today?
I'm good. The sun is out in Indiana. I think we've been waiting like 6 months for that, so I'm going to take it in.
I know. You never know what season we're going to get this week, right?
Nope, definitely not.
Erica, you have a phenomenal story, and I got to tell you, I got to give a shout out to my wife, Lindsay, for the introduction here, and a few other people. They've been to some of your events, but Erica, you're with Breastie Boxes, and this is something that I think all business owners need to hear. All small business owners need to hear, and all nonprofits need to hear, because this is a podcast about how to pick up clues in life from other people. Student of the Game is all about being a student of your surroundings, and it's really about learning from other people. I've been on here and I've talked about, in my real estate business, I've learned from doctors, I've learned from lawyers, I've learned from nonprofits, and I've adopted some of those tactics and those philosophies into our business. Today, we want to talk about Breastie Boxes and what you're doing in our area, Northeast Indiana, and beyond, I see. So you are a former elementary education teacher, mom of 4, and a 5-year breast cancer survivor.
I am.
Congratulations. Those
Thanks.
are all amazing titles, by the way. But today, we're here to talk about breast cancer and what you do for the women that are going through it. Give us a little backstory on how you got started with all this.
I always tell people my story actually began with my mom. My mom actually has had breast cancer twice. She's a 2-time survivor. And so that always was, something in the back of my mind that I'd have to be mindful of as I got older, as a woman. I was screened for high risk thanks to a family history of it. And so in 2021, I was 39 years old, went in for my routine MRI, and 3 weeks later found myself diagnosed with stage 2 HER2 positive breast cancer, which wasn't even the same kind of breast cancer my mom had, and it's not hereditary for us. So I had a much more aggressive form than her. So wow. Crazy.
Well, one of the things that I like to tell my kids and even my team, it's something I've heard a while back, is out of your pain comes your purpose. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like that's a very similar story for you. I mean, yeah. How long did it take for you to come up with this idea of Breastie Boxes? And let's talk about that. What is Breastie Boxes?
Yeah. So I did a whole year of treatment and surgery and all that. And I tell people that for me personally, that wasn't even the hardest part of my breast cancer story, was the active treatment. It was the emotional purgatory that comes with a sense of survivorship. And so nine months of working through who I was becoming after a breast cancer diagnosis. I met with a friend, Samantha, whose mom had passed away from breast cancer, and we were just looking at a simple way to give back to breast cancer patients the month of October of 2022. We just thought it would be a simple way to do care packages for breast cancer patients up at one of the local hospitals here in town, and kind of got involved with a couple different local businesses and pulled some resources with other survivors and other people who had, supported me. And what went from thinking we were going to put together 20 Breastie Boxes became this snowball of tangible goods and a beautiful box that really built this army and this connection of people together for a purpose. So just kind of crazy that happened under 4 years ago, and seeing what we've done today. It's kind of nuts.
I think that speaks to the passion, right? And sometimes, there's a mentor of mine. We had talked about some recording artist, and we talked about why they're so good. And one of the things he said is it's because he's had more pain in his life. Mm-hmm. And so through that pain, creates your purpose. Well, sometimes, we look at in business, there's always, I feel like there's the victim and there's the hero. And it's the same person.
Yeah.
And what makes you the hero or what makes you the victim is the choices that we get to make. And a lot of times, we all go through hard things. Maybe it's your family, maybe it's a health diagnosis, maybe it's your finances, maybe it's a relationship or a faith journey that you're on, but we all go through hard things.
Yeah.
And I think what happens is when you're at that crossroads or that fork in the road, when we decide to go do something about it and go serve others and go help other people, now we become the hero and we play into a role that we can go save others, we can go help others, and we can go provide solutions. Yeah. It's when the bad things or when the negative things or the challenges happen to us that now we sit back and we start to complain, or we start to get into that mindset of why me, why us, why are we going through this? And I believe it's paralyzing. And if you're a small business owner, you know what this is. You may have a bad quarter, a slow quarter. You may have a bad transaction that happened. You may have Erica, I know we're in a similar world where it takes revenue to do what we do.
Yep.
And there's always challenges to that. So I think that the question or the conversation is around when something happens to you, do you take it upon yourself to go impact change and create a positive result, or do you sit back and you allow yourself to keep getting knocked down? And to me, it just sounds like you made that choice to live into that person that needed to go help a bunch of people.
Yeah. I tell people, and it's interesting, you have tied this into business, but even as a person given a life-altering diagnosis, Ryan and I, my husband, we talked a lot about we could either let cancer eat us or we could eat it. We made very intentional choices from the very get-go about how we were going to do cancer. And I think that has just impacted everything along the way leading into the foundation and the building of Breastie Boxes, and even how we've grown. We say that we're gap fillers. As a patient, I personally got to see gaps and experience gaps in the care that I received, which was all good care. Mm-hmm. But the actual resources of once a breast cancer diagnosis hit, we saw a gap, and I knew it was poured onto me from that pain into that purpose that I was going to fill that gap. And we were going to fill it with a Breastie Box, a tangible resource for patients that also had an emotional aspect to it because of the perspective I was given from a patient and then wanting to advocate. So, yeah.
And so Breastie Boxes have been around since when?
October of 2022.
And then how many boxes? Yeah. How many boxes approximately have you given?
3,700 boxes in just under 4 years. Yeah. Which is also kind of cringy if you think about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We talked about this before we hit record, but you're kind of in a business or in a space that, you hope goes away. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, yeah. we'll talk about that towards the end. But yeah, I mean, it's to celebrate how many boxes you've sent out, but it's also, you're right. There's some cringe to that. Mm-hmm. The work you do matters. And that's why I wanted to have you on here, is to really get our audience exposed to the work you're doing. There's so many small business owners and there's so many nonprofits out there that we're all kind of running the same race, if you will. And there's so many takeaways. So we always like to start this podcast with mastering the fundamentals. And every business has fundamentals. I'm come from a sports background, and in basketball, it was, dribble, pass, and shoot. You said you have an athletic background. Is that right?
Toe pick.
Come on now.
Yeah, I was a synchronized figure skater at Western Michigan University, which is so random. It's like a flock of birds crashing into each other with blades strapped to their feet. It's awesome.
All right. Go Broncos. Anyway, so let's get back to mastering the fundamentals. Whether you're an athlete, whether you're a business owner or a nonprofit, there's always fundamentals in what you do every single day. And the fundamentals never change. We say the strategies and tactics will always change, but the fundamentals will never change. What are some fundamentals about Breastie Boxes and what you're doing?
Well, first I'll tell you our mission with Breastie Boxes is kind of vague, but in this beautiful way for the resources we provide. We say that we provide comfort, hope, confidence, and joy to those diagnosed with breast cancer. But I think, the tentacles that come from that are we truly believe in a sense of empathy and perspective. A breast cancer diagnosis changes your life. It changes the life of those around you, and it most definitely changes the way you look at life. So there's your perspective, right? Mm-hmm. One of the most common things that we address and talk about with survivors, caregivers, the medical professional is, it's a very isolating disease, cancer, breast cancer, and you could be surrounded by a million people, but unless they've walked the walk with you, in some capacity and also shared a breast cancer diagnosis, it's hard to relate to people perspective. So I think being able at Breastie Boxes, we say the box is the vessel of connection to people. It is awesome, but a way to connect a medical professional outside of a clinic with a patient, to connect a survivor to a newly diagnosed patient, to connect caregivers together to talk about that experience. We've built a lot of empathy around that and a safe space to be able to be truly authentic about how this disease has impacted you. It's super lonely. It really is. I was diagnosed at 39 years old. I was considered young then. Now it's not that young. And being able to connect with other women who are my age in the rat race of raising kids and a career or being in charge of a household, it's hard to connect with other people who might have the same disease and kind of experienced all that already. So being able to be connected with people and have people have the same perspective of you going into this disease, going into your treatment, and being able to safely talk about that, that's been one thing we've really cultivated from the very beginning, even actually before Breastie Boxes was, strategically formed. That was something that we identified. That was another gap, is there weren't a lot of spaces to talk about, losing your hair, chemo side effects, how sad you felt, how angry you felt, the tiny moments to celebrate where you found joy even when you felt not great or not yourself. And then the perspective around that, right? I can tell you that so many of us live so much bolder lives now because we have imagined what the alternative looks like and have chosen to not allow that fear to come in and consume us. We've chosen that perspective that we're going to live hard every day. We're going to live with gratitude, whether it's with our children or our careers or ways that we serve in our community and beyond, whether, plenty of coaches out there that have experienced this disease. I just think having a sense of empathy around it and then the perspective of knowing what it is like to experience this, it just helps you in other areas then. You have road rage and you're driving down the road and you honk your horn at someone. You have no idea what they've experienced for their day in the car. So, like you say, like a little bit of suffering, going through hard things, it changes you. And I have met a lot of people, it's changed for the better. And that's something that we've all talked about.
Yeah, I love those fundamentals. So I'm gonna try to repeat a lot of what I heard is empathy, empathy and perspective. Mm-hmm. But you also talked about authenticity. And I think that you have to show up authentic, like the version of yourself that's authentic. You have to show up that way if you truly want to make a difference. I'd like to add one fundamental, if I could.
Sure.
Just in listening to you, I think one of the fundamentals in what you do is community, is mm-hmm. building community, because, you said it best. You said, it was you and your husband who made that choice. It is an isolating journey. I could only imagine.
Yeah.
And so when we're isolated, this is business, this is life. But I believe when you're isolated, first of all, I think solitude and isolation are similar. The difference is mindset.
Yeah.
When you're proactive in being alone, I think that's solitude, where we can find a lot of hope in solitude because it's proactive. And I think a reactive approach to being alone is isolation. And so what you talked about with community is so important. Talk a little bit about, I've got a question. How do you maintain hope when the people around you are hurting? Like what you do for a living, like the people around you are hurting and you're passionate about it. I understand that, but how do you maintain hope when those around you are suffering?
I have this it used to be more of a love-hate relationship with the word hope. I think it's thrown around a lot mm-hmm. in the cancer world, so cliche. Mm-hmm. I actually went to a funeral this weekend for a woman who I know who passed away from breast cancer and spent a lot of time connecting with the women that I'm in a group with. And I had texted someone that I live with this hope now, this relentless pursuit of hope and faith. It almost feels a little reckless. But I'm like, what bad could happen from having hope? If you think about it. And that is one of our foundations of our mission is to bring hope. We're not equipped to change outcomes with breast cancer. That is outside of our wheelhouse. But to allow people to have hope, that mindset that you talked about, I think hope can counteract fear. And I'll tell you a story really quick. When I was diagnosed, I got connected to a woman back where I'm from in Michigan, same age, same type of breast cancer, same kind of treatment journey, Same kind of everything. It was eerily similar, but she lacked hope and allowed fear to come in. And, you know, call it what you want, but not only did she not respond well to her treatment, her breast cancer actually got worse. Her outcome became worse. And I always wondered about that, if maybe her mindset was like counteracting that hope that she was on, that journey that she was on. So I think about hope, and you know, that's something I talk to people about all the time, is searching for that, finding it, having it. Like, what's the worst that could happen? I mean, yes, could this disease overtake you? It very well could. That's the sad part of the job that we do, is we experience that. But while you're here and while you're living and surrounded by people that you love, wouldn't it be so much better to have that hope with you? I mean, I guess that's what I kind of challenge people with, is the mindset that you have going in. I say, sharpen up your armor, like, get suited up for battle. Yeah. Cancer's not going to mess around, like, go after it. Have some hope with that. I'm also an eternal optimist, so that doesn't always land well with people, but yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's important. Like, the lesson that I'm hearing you say is I think it's bold, and I think it's bold for everybody listening, because I think in order to have that healthy perspective that we talk about, you know, you're talking about, you're hoping for good results, but the outcomes are out of your control.
For sure.
In my real estate business, the outcomes are out of my control. The only thing I can control is if I win today. Like, what am I doing today that takes us forward? What am I doing tomorrow that takes us forward? Mm-hmm. And the only thing that I can control is, did I do the activities today that moves us forward? And I love that you said that. I love that that's your perspective, because whether you're the eternal optimist or not, what's the other side? You know, doom and gloom.
No,
right?
thanks.
Yeah, no, not at all. No. I mean, you can't be around, you know, people going through their cancer journey and being the downer. You've got to provide that. Call it whatever you want. In this terms, we'll call it hope. But let's transition a little bit. So we talked a lot about the fundamentals. In this podcast, we like to say, you know, let's fall in love with practice. And, you know, I tell my kids, you know, with the sports that they're in, or my son does show choir and theater, and it's like, you can be as good as you want if you love to practice. I don't care if you're playing an instrument. I don't care if you're playing a sport. I don't care if you're an entrepreneur. If you love to practice, if you love to get better, if you love to grow, you can be great. But also with that, when you fall in love with practice, you're doing so many things, the hours in the gym, the hours of you skating on the ice, the hours of you, you know, probably blisters on your feet and all that stuff from the skates or whatever it is. What are the things that you're falling in love with right now? The things that you do every single day that nobody sees. Erica, what are those things you fall in love with?
I'm like relentlessly stubborn, and I hate being told no. Like, I just does not bring me joy. I'm extremely competitive. Take that for however you want. And I had no experience in the nonprofit sector starting Breastie Boxes. I felt this shove on my back to go forward and to do this and to not look back. And we haven't since then. I've been finally given some time to rest, but it is, I would tell you, forming Breastie Boxes, starting Breastie Boxes, filling out IRS paperwork for Breastie Boxes was actually scarier than having breast cancer. And that sounds bananas. Because at that point, we are now carrying 3,700 boxes and 37 recipients. I carry that on my shoulders. It is this beautiful blessing and burden to know that people know that it's a survivor-built organization, that we have built it from our own personal experiences and perspective, again, empathy, and not wanting to disappoint these people, not wanting to disappoint the community. And so there is this like relentless pursuit again of not disappointing people. And that I also love that. I find that to be a complete challenge to always improve the process about how we do things. You know, one of my favorite things to do, sadly, is when I meet people who get a box or meet people who have not gotten a box, which happens. Mm-hmm. I always say, tell me about your journey. Tell me about your diagnosis. What does it look like? Where are you getting treatment at? Da-da-da-da-da. Because to me, those conversations and those questions and me having to listen to them, it is always an opportunity for us to improve our process. And I think that is so essential and has really been a huge part of us being an authentic organization. We do not have it all figured out. We are by far not perfect, but we are going to do the due diligence, be right by the patient, even the medical community, by our donors. That's really important to us that we steward their money properly. That we're always trying to improve the process while also rapidly growing, which is supremely intimidating. From getting an inventory system, from getting a CRM to be able to manage our donor relationships. Again, no experience with any of this, and it's all coming at us very quickly. But it's also accepting the challenge and being very humble and knowing I can only learn as fast as I can. And some days I'm just going to have to stop and pause and realign and get a little bit more strategic for the next day. I say it's been kind of a messy path, but beautiful at the same time. And I'm kind of figuring it out as I go.
and that's the part you're falling in love with. I mean, all those details, like filling the boxes and asking for money. I mean, those probably are things that, you just have to do every single day that some people wouldn't sign up for. I mean,
I love it. I love asking people for money. That's I could fall in love with that every single day.
Well, okay, here, shoot your shot. We're recording this live right here. What are your needs right now? What are your needs if somebody's listening and they're really excited to get involved? What do you guys need?
I mean, here's the real talk is, 90% of our funding that comes in is from the community. It's from business owners, businesses, corporations, donors, lemonade stands, you name it. We get zero funding from hospital systems here in town. So you have a friend that gets diagnosed and they're going to get treatment at one of the local hospital systems here in Fort Wayne. When they are handed a Breastie box, which they better be, or we're going to figure out that system,
right?
That box is free and clear to them. And some patients can receive up to 3 boxes based on their breast cancer treatment story journey. And so that's a big part of why we do what we do, is so people don't have to think about things that they need while they're going through this, and they don't have to worry about the cost of those things that they need. So Fort Wayne has shown up repeatedly year after year after year now for us to not have to get hospital funding to continue to provide boxes for people. So we're very thankful for that. And we need that to keep happening to continue to be sustainable and also meet the demands of this disease. Because I will tell you, the growth of breast cancer and the numbers, it's increasing. We're now serving men with a men's Breastie box. There have been 4 men diagnosed in 2 months, just up at one hospital system, which is kind of a statistical anomaly. And then you take into consideration that we deliver boxes to even just one of the hospital systems weekly, and I'm talking 20 to 25 boxes a week. Those are the numbers that we're facing just in our region alone.
Give the audience an example of, list some things that are in those boxes.
So one of my favorite boxes, because we have 3, our first box is a diagnosis box. So it's our first touch point that we call touch points. It's our first touch point with a patient, men's boxes, women's boxes, always have a cozy blanket, which we got new ones in. We'll work with Center Jewelry to do a custom bracelet that was designed for us since the very beginning. We do gift cards to coffee shops, cozy socks, journals, personal care products with safer ingredients. We have a surgical box, so when patients are mastectomy or lumpectomy routed, even men, we do a breast pillow. We have cold compresses. We have soap and wipes before showers. We have drain aprons, which those are things people don't think about that they need, that they don't have to worry about now that they get them in a Breastie box. We also have a treatment or infusion box. So that's when a patient shows up for their first day of chemotherapy or immunotherapy. Something people don't think about, and we've even talked about with doctors, is we have glass water bottles in there. A lot of infusion meds are metallic based. So think about, you need to stay hydrated to stay healthy, and everything you taste or drink tastes like iron, tastes like metallic. Yep. So a glass water bottle tries to keep that from being unadulterated. So yeah, we really are so methodical and so intentional about every item we put in each of our different types of boxes.
What's the thanks for sharing that, by the way.
Yeah,
That was something that we talk about Breastie boxes, to
what is a Breastie box?
What's in them is a great segue. Go back to the emotion side of it. What emotional weight comes with leading an organization with something that you've experienced yourself? Does it replay in your head a lot? Is it something
all the time?
It's kind of cathartic?
Yeah. So I'm only 5 years out from my personal diagnosis. And I'm your frontline person in the breast cancer world that get connected constantly with people. And I think there are 9 times out of 10, I am at peace with that. And I will be that person to connect you with someone who has the same kind of diagnosis as you and super connect that way. But there are days where even I am human. and I have a headache, and I'm like, surely it's a brain tumor. Which, by the way, you ask any breast cancer patient, like, this is a very common conversation that we connect on all the time, is the potential for a reoccurrence. Now, not letting it feed our fear, but it's just a placeholder, like, in our life. So that's sometimes, like, I had a really bad week last week. I had a friend pass away from it. I had several people who knew people who were getting diagnosed. I'm 44. I feel like I'm in the window where, like, I'm going to have a close personal friend get diagnosed, and I'm going to have to be there for that with a different hat on. And it's balancing a lot of emotions, which is sometimes a little scary and also heavy on top of that. So it's really just kind of figuring out to show up the best I can in leading Breastie Boxes, but also figuring out when I know I need to rest, fill up my cup to be able to keep leading the organization, to be able to keep helping people.
I think that answer transcends anybody listening to this podcast. The next question I was going to ask you, I think you started to answer a little bit, but when it does get heavy, how do you prevent burnout? I think that's something that we all experience, and I think a lot of us, who are doing something that they feel passionate about. I'm passionate about helping people become confident homeowners, whether you're selling or buying a home, and there are days that there's burnout. And how do you, when it's something as heavy as this, you've been through it yourself, how do you prevent burnout?
The healthy no. Boundaries.
Yeah.
That's a sticky word people don't love talking about. I will tell you, the first couple years of Breastie Boxes, I said yes to everything. And I mean, like, the first 2, because we're only in, like, approaching year 4. I said yes to everything. And with that came a lot of sacrifice away from my kids and my husband. And I have a little bit of a regret around that, truthfully. Yeah. Now we get a little bit more picky as an organization about where we spend our time. So we do show up the best for those people, or that event, or those patients, or whatever. It has just become a healthy no. And rest. Like, I think there's something to be said about rest. There is a day in our life where we're supposed to have rest once a week, right? It's being intentional. I mean, intentional is like a word you will hear me mention throughout all different areas of Breastie Boxes in my life. Being intentional about resting, sometimes saying no to things, prioritizing things. You have to do it. I'm a recent Mahjong player. I've been playing Mahjong for a year.
Right.
That is a way that I rest my brain away from Breastie Boxes, and it has been, like, so healing.
Wow, that's great. That's great. That's a big. There's a huge following to Mahjong. I've heard. I've got a few more questions, but you're answering a lot of them because I love hearing your story.
Thanks.
I love hearing where the pain came from and how you're serving other people and you're really helping other people. Let's go to the next section here where we talk about winning at the game of life. And we talk about fundamentals, what's fundamental about what you do every single day. And there's so many people that can relate. If you're growing a business or you want to start a nonprofit yourself, there's so many things that can relate of what's fundamental, because as we say, fundamentals don't change, but the strategies and tactics do.
Yep.
So what are those constants or those consistent things that are in your work every single day? Then we talk about falling in love with practice, like all the things that you're doing. Like what I heard you say was, Erica, your practice, the things that you do, kind of bring up those feelings again of what you went through. And in order to prevent burnout, you have to have boundaries in place. And sometimes boundaries are, I'm going to go play Mahjong, or I'm going to go golf, or I'm going to go, fish, or whatever your thing is. To refill your tank, right? We've all heard the analogy, like you can only pour out what you put in.
The oxygen mask theory,
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I tell my kid, you got to put your own oxygen mask on first. Absolutely. Any flight you've ever been on, you've heard that.
First thing.
But we go to, boundaries. And I think the other thing, before we go into winning at the game of life, one thing I want to give you the opportunity to is shout your team out. Because one thing that I believe is we created Noll Team Real Estate, and we left the word team in there for a very intentional reason. We want people to know this business is only as good as the sum of all of us. This is not Brad's business. This is not Lindsay's business. This is not one individual's business. This is the collective group of us. We come together. We stay in our lanes. We do the things that we have been gifted at. And that also prevents burnout. Shout your team out a little bit. Who do you have helping on this journey with you?
So I started it with my friend Samantha, and then we built our board of directors. But I think what's always been unique about Breastie Boxes, again, 1 in 8 women will face this disease in their life. That's that's a staggering statistic right there. We say we've always built an army, even just because of that number. I challenge people to say that they haven't met somebody with breast cancer yet. It's 9 times out of 10, you're going to meet someone who has. So that in numbers alone has brought so many people to us. My cousin got diagnosed, my mom, my sister, I want to get involved. So the amount of volunteers we've had to come in and help move us to a warehouse, put on a 500-person fundraiser, to come pack 150 boxes, to write notes of encouragement, to count thousands of items in our inventory. We could not do what we do if it were not for our volunteers. I mean, some of our volunteers are in first grade and they come pack boxes with pink wigs on. And then we have, businesses that come and support us through days of giving that they do. We're very fortunate that we had a really great year and we're able to actually hire an operations person, Bree. We say that Bree is like the brains and I'm the boobs, whether you can say that on a podcast or not. I just did.
You just did.
Bree is super organized and allows me to just go and do all of the crazy visionary things that I want to do. But it is a perfect balance that she also keeps me grounded and says, no, like we have tasks that we need to accomplish. And I'm like, that's right. I've been trying to avoid that. And so I'm very thankful for her also, because she just gets me. And man, it makes a work environment really, really easy to go serve the community pretty effortlessly when it comes to that kind of stuff. So I'm thankful for everyone that's had a touch point with Breastie Boxes, because we've been truly blessed.
Well, and I think that also goes back to what you talked about in terms of isolation. I'm sure running an organization, when you guys started, there was not only isolation from your diagnosis, but then there was isolation from your passion and the purpose that you were on for a while, because you wore all the hats and until you get this off the ground. And so we really believe that, in order for us to live out those gifts, you got to have a great team around you. So
absolutely.
Winning at the game of life, and as we know, we talk about winning at the game of life, like student of the game really is life. We're all playing this game called life. What does winning at the game of life look like for you, Erica?
So I have like two different thoughts of mind with this, and we talked about this a little bit earlier. Is winning? I always say like winning put me out of a job. Breastie Boxes is melancholy. I have people come up to me all the time and say, "Man, this is so awesome! How much you've grown." And I'm always like, "But think about that for a minute." And they're like, "Oh." I would love to not have to give out Breastie Boxes. I would love to never have to experience another breast cancer diagnosis ever again. And so that is something like we do think about, is we wish we didn't have to do this. But this disease is relentless. There is no cure yet. So we continue showing up for those people. Winning for us is exactly that. It sounds so simple. A, we just want to help people. And B, we just want to remind people that they are not alone. They're not alone in the feelings of frustration or sadness or anger they might feel in a breast cancer diagnosis. They're not alone about being ticked off that they don't have eyebrows anymore because cancer robbed them of that. It's that community, it's that connection. It is the reminder that you're not alone. We say we've figured out a way to make a box, that tangible box, make emotions tangible, that you can actually feel them when you feel the items in the box. It's this hard to describe vision and experience when you get a Breastie box. And I've met a lot of people that are like, yeah, I hadn't touched it for 2 weeks. And then I opened it and I realized, wow, there is so much more than just the stuff that's in it. It's the experience of it, the thought that goes into it, the hope that comes out of it. There's that word, right?
Yeah.
I think that's winning for us. There's not a clear defined finish line. Finish line for anyone in cancer is you get through the finish line, you live, you're cancer free, but that simply is just not how it is for everybody.
Sure, and that's focusing on the outcomes, which is hard to do. I've got a personal question for you. So you talked about winning in the game of life with Breastie Boxes, but has your definition of winning changed from being an elementary teacher to now?
Yeah. My husband and I talk a lot about contentment. I think in a society, we are so quick to measure a highlight reel of someone else and then pick out our shortcomings or what we're not doing and where we want to be and whatever. And I think there's a vast difference between being discontent or, having dreams and having visions and things like that. That's like one of my favorite things to do is dream and envision like what I would love to have. But the reality is I'm thankful to be alive. I am thankful to be present every day with my kids and my husband. I just have this very simple sense of gratitude for the time that I now have. And I'm very, very mindful of how I use my time personally, and then even how I use my time in leading with Breastie Boxes. So yeah, for sure, my idea of winning has significantly changed. I don't think it matters how much money you have in your account. I don't think it matters how big your house is. You guys have some beautiful homes, though. I think it's a sense of peace and contentment that just washes over you, that you sit there for a minute and you look at your kids at the kitchen table and you're like, oh my gosh, this is my life. Like, how awesome is that? I know that those moments, those are like my wins for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. If somebody's listening today and they've got fear or uncertainty because either they themselves, or somebody they know is newly diagnosed or going through their cancer journey, what do you want them to hear from you? Like, what's the message that you're out there sharing?
I like this question because I think we're so quick to spiral. It's like pulling a thread on a sweater and letting it unravel a little bit. Breast cancer, disease, illness, suffering, it is a marathon, not a sprint. There's your sports analogy there, metaphor. One step at a time, one hurdle at a time, like one step at a time. If you try to tackle it all, it becomes very overwhelming, paralyzing, and then you might find yourself like 10 steps behind where you even started. I think if you just take it one step at a time, one appointment at a time, one chemotherapy at a time, you'll find that one step at a time is like one pebble, right? Like, you will find yourself further on in that journey if you just keep your eyes forward and you just keep going. Even if it feels slow, it's progress, right? Versus trying to do it all and then you fall down and scrape your knees, whatever. One step at a time. It is a marathon, not a sprint. One step at a time.
I love it. I'm a nerd when it comes to like quotes and things that I've heard from coaches and other people. And one thing that I've just retained, and sometimes it's useless information, but sometimes it's very relatable. And Lou Holtz had this famous quote. Lou Holtz was a football coach. He turned several programs around into national powerhouses.
Yes, he did.
And one of the things that he was notorious for saying is they kept asking, how do you turn these programs around, whether it's South Carolina or whether it's Notre Dame? And he kept saying his philosophy was to win. And they said, well, Coach, what do you mean by that? Well, win stood for what's important now. If you can ask yourself in any moment during the day, right? It's whatever time o'clock it is today, whenever you're listening to this, if you just pause this and say, what's important now? Maybe it's a phone call you have to make to deliver bad news. Maybe it's a friend you need to go visit. Maybe it's an email you need to return. Maybe it's, a meeting you need to set up. Maybe it's a meeting you need to cancel. What's important now is exactly what I'm hearing you say, is like, as you're going through your journey, the advice you're giving to people is make sure that they understand what's important right now. Yeah. Don't try to solve your problem tomorrow. Nope. Don't try to solve your problem next week, but what's important now. And we kind of coined that phrase, let's win the day. Our real estate team talks about winning the day. But sometimes it's even more microscopic of like what's important right now. Like, can we win the minute? Can we win the 5 minutes? Before we move on. So love your answers. I think all this is great. I think you gave advice to small business owners. I think you gave advice to nonprofits. I think you shared your heart. I don't know if you've had anybody tell you this, but I think you're deep. I think you've done a lot of research. You've gone through a lot. You're a really fun person to talk to, by the way, Erica.
Thanks.
I hope this blesses some people out there. Before we go, we like to say relationships win. In the game of life, relationships win. And I'm not where I'm at without key relationships in my life. I know my future won't be what it is without key relationships in my life in the future. And before we talk about people that have been important in your life, how can somebody come along and support you, Erica, and your mission and Breastie Boxes? Let's talk about your website, social media, events, anything you want to promote. How can people find you?
Well, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but that doesn't mean people don't get diagnosed every other month of the year. So take that into consideration. We love that everybody shows up October, but if people can show up in May, June, August, that would be great too. We really encourage people to head over to our website at breastieboxes.com, where we're really trying to get more events updated for people to be able to participate. But actually, we have an event coming up June 3rd. It's Wednesday evening up in Huntertown at our warehouse. June is Men's Health Awareness Month, and as if any of you have found out, we have launched men's Breastie Boxes for men diagnosed with breast cancer. So we're going to do a community Pack the Box event that evening. We have Charlie's Bar Cart coming out with food and refreshments and some yard games, and just for people to come pack over 100 men's boxes and just kind of be a part of the mission and learn a little bit more about Breastie Boxes. We have Pinch of Pink, which is our huge fundraising event. That's every year in October. It's October 1st this year, so we're kicking off the month strong, and really, sharing the mission of Breastie Boxes. So we follow us along on social media, check out our website. We really try to do real-time updates as far as events and ways that people can engage, or they can just give us all their money too. I'm fine with that.
It's a great cause, and I love meeting people that are passionate about it. So Thank you for sharing that. So student of the game, we've talked about master the fundamentals, falling in love with practice, and winning at the game of life. Thank you for sharing about Breastie Boxes. As the listeners, as you guys know, our thesis right here is relationships win. In the game of life, relationships win. And so I'd like to know who's an important relationship in your life. And the kids these days say, give this person their flowers, give this man his flowers, give this woman her flowers. Who's somebody you want to send some flowers to today? Who's somebody who's been, instrumental in your journey?
I have to tell you that there's two women, actually. Krista Lehman of Kate's Cart and Michelle Didden, of the original founder of the Sexual Assault Treatment Center. They are like my diehard encouragers. I met them both so early on in the beginning of Breastie Boxes. There's actually some crazy stories behind that, but those women have given me so much wise counsel on what to do, what not to do, what they wish they would have done, to kind of give me the cheat code on that, but also just encourage some of my crazy ideas because of the passion behind it. Why not try it? Why not have that hope to see it through? The two of them both built incredible organizations, and so that was like a beacon for me to even look at that, and they were no-brainers. Those women have unequivocally changed my life and how I want to continue to lead Breastie Boxes. So I have nothing but love for them.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I can't not just add to that and say, you never know the ripple effect that you are going to have in somebody's life. Those ladies have helped you, that has now helped hundreds of people, thousands of people. And that's just how it works. That's how the game of life works. Relationships win. And you are a great example of that, Erica. So thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're going to post this information. If you like this episode, if you know somebody who has been diagnosed with breast cancer, if you know somebody who's going through it, if you just want to get involved, make sure you share this episode with them. Share it with a friend. Share it on social media. Tag us. And we'd love to follow up. So that's a wrap. Thanks, Erica.